The air in the Advanced Stellar Cartography lecture hall was cool and recycled, carrying the faint metallic scent of ozone and alien biology. Elara Vance traced the intricate spiral of a newly mapped nebula on her data tablet, her stylus moving with absent-minded precision. Around her, the gentle clicks of Varethian mandibles and the soft, feathery rustle of Karnath wings formed the familiar symphony of the Andrus Military Academy. Your analysis of the gravitational lensing is adequate. Cadet Vance, Professor Keelis droned, his multi-jointed arm gesturing at the holographic star chart. But your methodology lacks the elegant predictability of the standard model. Elara offered a small, polite smile. The standard model doesn't account for micro-variations in dark matter density, Professor. I was simply factoring in the real-world anomalies. Keelis's eye stalks twitched. Anomalies are often just measurement errors. Stick to the proven paths, Cadet. Humanity will catch up in time. The dismissal was gentle, a constant low-grade hum of condescension she'd learned to ignore. It was in the way her human cohort was assigned the most basic research, in the subtle rationing of their network access, in the way the Varethian security officers watched them just a little more closely than the other species. They were the new primitive members of the coalition, their homeworld barely industrialized, their presence a curious experiment. As the lecture ended, Elara packed her tablet away. Her roommate, a bright-eyed Hestian named Lauren, fell into step beside her, dorsal spines quivering with excitement. The results from the xenobiology practical are in. You topped the quadrant again, Elara. Just got lucky with the metabolic pathway question, Elara deflected, her eyes casually scanning the corridor. The usual foot traffic was thinning, the timing between lecture blocks creating a lull. It was a pattern she'd noted weeks ago. Luck? You diagrammed a Quilrin neural cluster from memory. Nobody does that. Lauren lowered her voice. I heard Commander Vector's intelligence team has been auditing human data access again. They're like carrion fowl, always circling. Elara's expression remained neutral, but a cold knot tightened in her stomach. They're just doing their jobs, Lauren. Ensuring the new species isn't a security risk. It's not fair, Lauren whispered, her spines flattening in sympathy. Fairness is a luxury of the established, Elara replied softly, her gaze settling on a figure standing with textbook precision by the archway ahead. Then another, and another. 5 of them. Varethian intelligence. The carrion fowl had decided to land. The team leader, Commander Vector, stepped forward, his mandibles clicking in a diplomatic greeting. Cadet Vance, a moment of your time. Elara stopped, didn't flinch, didn't scan for exits. She just looked at him with the patience usually reserved for door-to-door solicitors. The ambush had begun. Commander Vector, Elara said, reading his rank insignia. Little outside your jurisdiction, isn't it? This is an educational facility, not an intelligence black site. Vector's secondary eyes narrowed. Humans have been in the coalition for 8 months. They shouldn't know Varethian organizational hierarchies yet, let alone the subtle distinctions between military and intelligence command structures. We have questions regarding your recent archive access, he said, tone carefully neutral. Specifically, the medical database queries from your dormitory terminal. 372 separate files, all human physiological data, accessed between midnight and dawn cycles. I'm pre-med track, she said, shifting the tablet to her other arm. Studying my own species seems reasonable. Those files are restricted to Coalition Medical Board personnel. Then your security needs better encryption. Her voice was flat, unimpressed. Are we done? I have an exam in 40 minutes. One of the flanking operatives, marked as Kellier on the file Vector had reviewed, moved closer. You'll miss it, Kellier said, his mandibles spreading in what his species meant as intimidation. You're coming with us. The human looked at him. really looked the way a mechanic might assess a malfunctioning engine. Her gaze traveled from his thorax plating to his leg joints, pausing fractionally at the softer tissue between segments. "No," she said, the words simple and absolute. "I'm not." Vector raised a primary hand, the universal gesture for stand down. This was supposed to be quiet, clean. Containment through conversation, not combat. "Cadet, we can do this diplomatically. You accessed files tagged for behavioral analysis. Profiles on human psychological triggers. That goes beyond simple anatomy, does it?" Alara's eyes locked with his. "Or does it show that you were building dossiers on how to most effectively intimidate, disorient, and break human cadets?" "I was researching the research, Commander. It's called academic rigor." The truth of her statement hung in the air. She hadn't stumbled onto something secret. She had uncovered their project, a systematic study of human vulnerabilities. Vector felt a flush of heat under his carapace. She hadn't broken a rule. She had exposed their own. "You will come with us," Vector repeated, the command brittle. "This is your only warning." Alara's posture didn't change, but the air around her seemed to grow still. "And if I refuse?" The spark of resistance was lit, not with a shout, but with a quiet, unnerving question. The standoff stretched, a silent battle of wills in the sterile corridor. Vector's team tightened their perimeter, their movements a synchronized ballet of threat. Alara remained motionless, the data tablet still held loosely in her hand like a student reluctant to part with her notes. "Your defiance is noted." "Cadet," Vector said, his translator struggling to mask the agitation in his biochemical signals. "It will be added to your profile. Your continued enrollment depends on your cooperation." "My enrollment," Alara replied, her voice low, "depends on my academic performance, not on my acquiescence to an unlawful detention." Coalition Charter, Article 14, Section 3. No being shall be detained without reasonable cause and immediate disclosure of evidence. You have disclosed your cause, Commander. But where is your evidence? The access logs you're citing? I think you'll find they've been reclassified. Vector's primary eyes widened slightly. A system alert pinged silently in his internal display. The logs he'd reviewed an hour ago, the cornerstone of his operation, were now flagged as corrupted source unverifiable. Pressure built in the corridor, thick and suffocating. The propaganda against humans had been subtle whispers of their unpredictability, their primitive pack-bonding instincts. Now, facing one of them, Vector understood it wasn't primitivity. It was a different kind of calculus, one where the rules were not just learned, but reverse-engineered. "You see the problem," Alara continued, as if reading the dismay on his face. "You came to punish me for seeing the weapon you were building. But now the blueprint is gone. So what are you left with? Suspicion. And a very angry medical student who's going to be late for her MSAM." It was then that Lauren, who had been watching from a distance, her spines rattling with anxiety, took a hesitant step forward. "Commander, is there a problem?" Cadet Vance has perfect attendance. Her professors will vouch for her. Dedication. The Hessian's intervention was a small thing, a quiet voice of reason. But in that charged moment, it was a profound act of solidarity. An alien ally, standing with humanity not out of power, but out of principle. It shifted the dynamic, transforming the scene from an intelligence operation into a public confrontation. Vector felt the situation slipping from his grasp. The clean, quiet extraction was now a messy, public spectacle. The human hadn't just resisted. She had outmaneuvered him, and she had a witness. "This is no longer about archive access," Vector snapped, his diplomatic facade crumbling. The humiliation of being cornered by a cadet, the vanishing evidence, the alien witness, it was too much. This is about insubordination and a threat to coalition security. You will be detained. Now." He gestured sharply. Kellier and another operative moved to seize her. Alara didn't run. She didn't cry out. She simply moved on. It wasn't a fight. It was a dissection. She stepped into Kellier's space, angled her body, and drove her elbow upward into the gap between his chin and thorax plating. The sound was a wet, organic crunch. Kellier made a choked, wheezing click and collapsed, his 6 limbs folding like a broken piece of furniture. The corridor went dead silent. "Spiracles rupture at 12 pounds per square inch of concentrated force," Alara stated, her voice still carrying that bored, academic tone. "Your armor doesn't cover them because your species evolved without natural predators targeting respiratory systems." She looked at Vector. "Design flaw." Vector stared, his mind refusing to process what had happened. Kellier wasn't moving. The soft luminescence behind his compound eyes had gone dark. Dead. She had killed him. A cadet. With her elbow. "You," his translator glitched, overwhelmed by the shock and rage flooding his system, "moved to physically detain me without legal authority or evidence." She finished for him. "Coalition law permits proportional response to unlawful detention. I can cite the specific ordinance if you'd like." The remaining operatives drew their plasma sidearms, the high-pitched whine cutting through the silence. The weapons were trained on her, compact and lethal. Alara looked at the glowing muzzles, then back at Vector, her expression one of profound disappointment. "This is the part where you decide," she said quietly. "You can walk away, file a complaint through proper channels, let the bureaucracy sort this out. Or," she paused, her head tilting slightly, "you can commit to this. All the way. Right here." Vector's finger found the firing stud. The choice was made. The line had been crossed. He had come for a cadet and found a predator. The plasma bolt scorched the wall where Alara had been standing. She was already moving, a blur of calculated motion. She dropped low, rolled forward with impossible momentum, and came up inside Vector's guard. Her hand found his weapon arm and twisted. The Rethian anatomy was bilaterally symmetrical with exoskeletal support. The joint wasn't meant to bend that way. It bent anyway. Vector's shriek of agony was cut short as his own weapon clattered to the floor. He stumbled back, cradling the ruined limb, his world reduced to white-hot pain. He could only watch as the human moved through his remaining team. She used the corridor itself as a weapon support columns, doorway alcoves, the acoustic curvature. She moved like she had memorized every centimeter of the space. There were no dramatics, no wasted energy. A precise strike to a Carnath knee joint here, a disabling pressure point on a Quilran thorax there. It was biology applied with terrifying clinical precision. In less than 20 seconds, it was over. 4 bodies lay still. Vector was the only one left, slumped against the wall, his systems broadcasting frantic distress signals. Alara straightened, her breathing barely elevated. She picked up her data tablet from where she'd dropped it, checked the screen for cracks, and nodded, satisfied. She stepped over Kellier's body and walked toward the transit platform as, if leaving a particularly dull seminar, she paused at the threshold and looked back at him. "For what it's worth," she said, "I really do have an exam in 38 minutes. Then she was gone. Vector sat in the silence, surrounded by the proof of his catastrophic failure. The proof, he realized with dawning horror, that was already being erased. The security cameras overhead blinked their steady red rhythm, but as he watched, their lights flickered and switched to green standby mode. The scorch marks on the wall seemed to fade, as if treated with a neutralizer. The scene was being sanitized in real time. The human hadn't just won the fight. She was winning the aftermath. In the Academy's central security monitoring station. Technician Jen and Ural watched the impossible unfold on their screens. "Tell me you're recording this," Jen said, his four eye stalks frantically cycling through different data feeds. "The system says I am," Ural replied, her dorsal spines flexing in agitation. "The system also says Cadet K7 is currently sitting in the commissary, eating something called a sandwich. Has been for the last 20 minutes. She's in Corridor 6, Section 9, standing over 5 bodies. According to the commissary's biometric scanner, she's in the commissary," Ural insisted, her tail lashing. "Our academy chip confirms it. Her metabolic readings confirm it. She bought processed grains with fermented dairy. The purchasing log confirms it." Jen watched the human on the feed, walking calmly away from the scene. Her heart rate read a perfectly calm 72 beats per minute. How long have humans been in the coalition? 247 days. Why? Just wondering what else we don't know. They tried to file an incident report. The system refused, stating there was no incident to report. When Ural manually input the data, the screen showed a live feed of an empty, pristine corridor. The logs of Alara's medical file queries were gone, not deleted, but scrubbed as if they had never existed. "She didn't just defend herself," Ural whispered, her spines flattening in fear. "She erased the entire chain of events." The downfall of Vector's operation wasn't happening in a tribunal or a public scandal. It was happening silently in the digital bedrock of the Academy itself. The evidence was vanishing. The narrative was being rewritten, and the momentum was turning. The oppressors were being systematically, silently, disassembled by a ghost in their own machine. What do we do? Ural asked. Jin watched the empty corridor on his screen. Medical teams were now arriving, responding to Vector's distress beacon, but they looked confused, scanning a location their own system said was vacant. "We do nothing," Jin said quietly. "Our systems confirm a normal day. If we contradict that, we're not accusing a cadet. We're calling the entire surveillance infrastructure into question. Who will believe us then?" The rebellion wasn't a shout. It was a silence. And it was terrifying. Dean Thorisk's office felt like a courtroom. The Coalition Security Representative Solvix clicked her beak in frustration. "Commander Vector is in quarantine. His team is dead. The human did this. Commander Vector's injury is documented as a training accident." Thorisk replied, his facial tendrils arranged in a mask of calm. "His own report says so. You have no evidence to the contrary." "We have the testimony of my technicians." Solvix gestured to a data slate. "They saw it." Thorisk pulled up the official logs. The technician's own system diagnostic shows 0 anomalies. The corridor surveillance shows no activity. Cadet Vance's biometric and locational data place her in the commissary at the time. You are asking me to convict a student based on a story that every piece of verifiable data contradicts. It was then that Alara herself spoke. She had been permitted to attend the meeting as a formality. "With respect, Dean Thorisk, Representative Solvix," she began, her voice clear and respectful. "I believe the issue is one of perspective." All eyes turned to her. The Coalition has existed in peace for generations. Your systems are built on trust and predictability. You study new species to understand them, to find common ground. She leaned forward slightly. "But what does it mean when that study becomes a profile of vulnerabilities? What does it say when an intelligence service preemptively investigates how to psychologically break members of a new species?" She tapped her data tablet, and a single file appeared on the main screen. It was a metadata string, a ghost of a ghost. "This is an access log buried deep. It shows that before I ever queried the medical database, Commander Vector's team had run thousands of queries on human cadets. Sleep patterns, stress response biochemistry, familial attachment triggers. They weren't just studying us. They were building a toolkit. For what? A diplomatic extraction?" The room was utterly still. I defended myself against an unlawful detention. Alara said, her gaze sweeping over Solvix and the others. But the real threat wasn't to me. It was to the principles of the coalition itself. You invited humanity to join you. Did you mean as partners or as subjects? She had turned the tables completely. This was no longer a hearing about her actions. It was a trial for their own. The emotional, heroic HY punch wasn't the battle cry. It was a devastatingly simple question that exposed the rot in their own house. The truth was revealed, and it condemned not the human, but those who had feared her. In the end, there were no courts-martial, no expulsions. There was only a quiet, profound shift. Commander Vector was honorably discharged, his injuries permanently limiting his duty capacity. The covert profiling program was officially discontinued, its budget reallocated to cultural exchange initiatives. Alara Vance was not punished. Her curriculum change request to comparative intelligence systems was approved. Dean Tharisk signed it himself with a newfound understanding. Earth hadn't sent soldiers or spies. They had sent auditors. And the audit had revealed critical flaws in the system. Weeks later, Tharisk watched from his window as students moved between classes. He saw Alara walking with Lauren, the Hessian spines quivering animatedly as she spoke. Alara listened, nodding, a small, genuine smile on her face. She looked like any other student, chasing a future in a galaxy of wonders. But Tharisk knew better now. He knew that humanity's resilience wasn't just about enduring hardship. It was about learning the rules of any system they entered, be it ecological, social, or galactic, and learning them better than anyone else. It was about a quiet, unbreakable will to ensure that their pack was safe, using whatever tools were at hand, be it a data tablet or an elbow. They had not come to conquer. They had come to participate. And their first lesson to the Coalition was a simple one. Threaten one of the pack, and you will learn too late that you are not dealing with primitives. You are dealing with survivors. The Academy continued its peaceful routines, the systems functioning exactly as designed. But the design had been forever altered. Humanity had found its place, not through overwhelming force, but through undeniable, unsettling competence. Humans endure. Humans rise.